From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good afternoon, I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report. The pundits said it was dead, but Democrats pulled out a compromise financial reform bill that could affect the price of all the energy we buy. The bill would regulate energy derivatives, those big bucks bets on futures prices for oil, natural gas, home heating oil, and gasoline. Speculation in them was blamed for driving energy prices crazy in 2008. Early this morning, after an overnight marathon session, a House-Senate Conference Committee voted out a bill that requires energy derivatives trades to be settled on open exchanges or clearinghouses. Advocates say it will lower everyone's energy costs by forcing those bets into the open. Traders and banks who make billions from derivatives warn that this will drive the trading overseas. House and Senate leaders are hoping for a final vote on the compromise bill next week. Vice President Joe Biden is expected to travel to the Gulf Coast on Tuesday to review efforts to combat the oil spill. Biden will visit the National Incident Command Center in New Orleans and the Florida Panhandle as well. Meantime, U.S. Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen said today a new freestanding riser pipe should be in place on BP's Macondo well by July. Allen says the new pipe will replace the current riser, increasing the amount of oil collected from the gushing well into the Gulf to between 60 and 80,000 barrels a day. He also said if a hurricane threatens the area, tankers and vessels would be required to stop operations and move to safety.
We have a very robust hurricane contingency plan that has been produced by our incident commanders. In general, our threshold to start taking action is 120 hours before gale force winds are forecasted. That can be a different set of mileage depending on the track and the speed of the storm. But in general, at about 120 hours out of the onset of gale force winds, we will start to redeploy the equipment from the well site, redeploy other equipment to safe venues so they can come in after the storm to reestablish production or to take part in rescue activities.
Allen says so far BP has paid $125 million in claims to individuals and businesses suffering losses from the spill. Well, it's called the world's largest oil skimmer, and it's headed to the Gulf. The 1,100-foot vessel called a Whale made a port of call in Norfolk on Friday morning en route to the Gulf. Owners say they have no government approval to participate in the cleanup, but they're hopeful they can get that during this 3-day journey to the Gulf. TMT Group of Taiwan says its ship has the capacity to draw 500,000 barrels of oily water in 8 to 10 hours, far outdoing the skimming capacity of fishing boats now working the Gulf's oiled waters. Well, a 2-year study by MIT experts concludes natural gas will double its share of the U.S. electricity market in coming decades, up to 40% of power. The increase, it says, will come primarily from utilities switching from coal to meet stricter pollution standards and carbon restrictions. Recent discoveries of huge natural gas shale deposits indicate the U.S. has about a century of natural gas available. By mid-century, the study says natural gas will need carbon capture just like coal, but meanwhile, it is a lower carbon bridge while renewables technologies mature. The report, released in Washington today, was financed in part by the American Clean Skies Foundation, which sponsors Clean Skies News. The study was led by Ernest Moniz, former Undersecretary of Energy and Director of MIT's Energy Initiative. MSHA says it's now safe for investigators to start working inside Massey Energy's Upper Big Branch mine in West Virginia, where 29 men died in April in the deadliest mining accident in 40 years. The agency says the final activity in making the mine safe, hanging curtains to direct air through deep parts of the mine. That's supposed to prevent methane gas from the coal reaching explosive concentrations. MSHA suspects methane and coal dust caused the explosion on April the 5th. Well, there is more to do in the nation's deep offshore waters than drill. You can float a wind turbine. That's the $60 million energy project the University of Maine is working on, and DOE has just agreed to provide $20 million to help develop deepwater offshore wind technologies. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu recently visited the university's materials research lab at the invitation of Maine Senator Susan Collins. This is the first research money aimed specifically at deepwater wind. Collins said the technology could create as many as 15,000 jobs. Environmental and watchdog groups claim in a lawsuit federal agencies responsible for approving a wind farm off Cape Cod violated federal law by endangering protected migratory birds. This suit, filed Friday in federal court, alleges that required scientific studies were not done and that protective measures were ignored in approving the 130-turbine project in Nantucket Sound. This lawsuit alleges the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service violated the Endangered Species Act, Migratory Bird Treaty Act, and the National Environmental Policy Act. Well, is there a hybrid price war brewing between Honda and Toyota? Automotive reports are predicting it, with Honda planning to unveil its cheapest hybrid to date, reportedly this fall. Based on the current fit, the car will average close to 70 miles a gallon and cost less than $17,000. That undercuts its current hybrid lineup, already cheaper than Toyota's Prius. The hybrid fit is expected to debut in Japanese showrooms before it hits the U.S. That's the Energy Report. We'll see you on Monday with your latest energy news. For any suggestions or comments about our programming, you can reach us at contact@cleanskies.com or also on Twitter and Facebook. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, have a great weekend.